Hey, it's the Fish Guy with Something Fishy, and today on Fish Guy TV, we're going to talk about maintaining a saltwater fish-only aquarium. Saltwater fish-only meaning that the tank is decorated with artificial corals and teeming with lots of fish. We're going to show you the ins and outs and how to maintain that in the process that we follow, not only here at Something Fishy, but also in the field on the hundreds of aquariums that are under our managed service program. To help us demonstrate the managed services on this aquarium, we're going to use our showroom aquarist, Cortland Johnson. Hey, Cortland.
Hey, Fish Guy.
Thanks for helping us out today.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'll get out of the way and have Cortland show us how this all works. Obviously, the first thing with managing an aquarium and when you're about to start to take care of it is to make sure you protect the carpeting or the flooring around the aquarium just in case there's any drips or anything like that during the services provided. It also is certainly a place to place your buckets or any tools that you use throughout the service. With the inspection complete, we're going to move on to testing the water quality within the aquarium. In an established fish tank, the water quality that we're looking for are testing the nitrites, salinity, and also the pH. It's a good idea to test this both before and after the service, and then also document your recordings so you have a history of the health of your aquarium. If it's an established healthy aquarium, you can use a test strip, which is not the most accurate test, but going to give you a quick glance at what's happening within the aquarium. And that'll take care of your nitrite, your nitrate, and the pH. If that looks like it's in a good, safe range, then you can move on to testing the salinity. If the range is not safe, I would recommend a second test with the test strips. And if you still have poor results, you might want to move on to more of a professional grade test kit. We'll now move on to wiping down the glass and also the faux decor within the aquarium and freeing up any algae. It's important to do this prior to your water change so that any debris that's freed or stirred up into the water column during this process is then removed through your water change. When you're doing a wipe down, as Cortland will demonstrate, you want to make sure you do it in very level swipes within the aquarium, overlapping every stroke so that you don't miss any spots. Notice in a tank like this, it's very clean to begin with, which is key. Always doing preventative maintenance. You want to be able to clean the tank before it's actually visibly dirty. Since we're doing that, you do want to make sure you cover the entire glass and all aspects of it with the sponge or the material that you're using, the tool such as this Kent Marine scraper to clean the algae. Remember, overlapping the strokes and making sure that you don't miss any spots. Any missed spots will turn into excessive algae growth pretty rapidly after we've completed our service. Once the wipe down is done, you can go ahead and move on to cleaning the faux coral. In a tank like this, the faux coral stays in the aquarium and is cleaned with a brush like the one here. You want to use a brush that has somewhat of a hard bristle, medium to hard bristle, so that you're going to remove any hair algae or any detritus that might be in the crevices of the decor. On smaller aquariums, we may use a fake or fabricated coral that could actually be removed from the tank and cleaned with a material such as bleach, as long as it's done properly and the bleach is nowhere near the aquarium, and also done specifically like in a vat where the coral can be bleached underwater and thoroughly rinsed before returning to the aquarium. If you're using that, I would recommend a couple of sets of coral so that you can swap your coral out at the service and not have to wait for that lengthy process of soaking corals in a bleach and water solution. A tip to take away is when you're cleaning an aquarium like this that has glass on both sides, make sure you're thoroughly cleaning the glass in the front, the back, and the sides of the aquarium. Even if the tank is not see-through, the back wall of the tank should be maintained with a pristine finish. Keep it clean at all times so that algae doesn't accumulate over time. Remember, if algae is allowed to grow, it becomes very difficult over time to remove it. It's much easier to take the algae and remove it on a regular basis while it's still soft and before it calcifies and gets hard to the glass. Another important point is when you're cleaning the glass, use a tool separate from what you use on the gravel or sand line. You don't want to use a tool in the sand line and then subsequently go and clean the glass with the same tool. The reason for this is the tool that's used in the sand line is going to get sand and particulate matter in it, and that potentially could cause scratches in your glass. you need to be especially sensitive about this if you have an acrylic aquarium. Acrylic is a plastic material that'll scratch a lot easier. So definitely use a separate tool, as Cortland is demonstrating here, in the gravel line than you're going to use in the rest of the aquarium. And don't use that tool at any other time except in the sand line. Now that we've completed our wipe down, we'll move on to the water change. When we're doing a water change, we want to also perform a gravel stir and gravel siphon, or you might know it as a gravel vacuum. In vacuuming the gravel, we're going to be removing excess fish waste and excess food as well. When you're gravel siphoning like this here, it's easiest to use a tube that's a little bit shorter than the total height of your tank, so that you don't have to reach way down to the bottom. Let the tool do the work for you. The particular hose that we're using here is what's called like an aquarium water change hose. It's actually hooked up to our sink, and there's a tool that goes to the sink so that when you hook your hose up to it and then actually turn your faucet on, it creates a siphon. Notice in the siphon tube, the gravel comes up about halfway, and then when that happens, Cortland releases the gravel by raising the pipe or pinching the hose, as he's demonstrating here with his left hand. When the gravel is coming up the pipe, you can see the coloration of the debris that's coming up. In this case, it's a brown or off-white. That's pretty normal for a healthy aquarium. If you're getting a lot of dark brown colors, then you're probably not performing water changes frequently enough and need to perform a bigger water change. On a healthy tank, as you see demonstrated here, where the material in the siphon tube is not that dark, a 20% water change is about appropriate. When vacuuming the tank, it's also important to stir the gravel so that the gravel gets completely turned over. That way, any algae that's forming in the gravel will actually, it'll actually start to die off as it's turned on the underside of the substrate. This will help keep your substrate nice and clean, as demonstrated here. Throughout our service, we want to use our fishtail form to keep us on track, make sure that we're not missing anything, and that we're paying particular attention to the order in which we follow in cleaning an aquarium. Now we're going to move on to changing the filter media within the fish tank. A tank like this is managed on a weekly basis, and every week we're going to remove the mechanical filter media. In this case, it's a blue filter pad. That filter pad is going to have debris on it. We want to be able to get that completely out of the system so it doesn't decompose within the tank. Once that's removed, we'll put a new pad in, and then also change the chemical media within the system. One is charcoal and the other is Purigen. Both will help with water clarity, keeping the tank from yellowing, and taking care of material within the system such as impurities that might be found in your fish food or anything like that. While you're changing your media, you also want to take time to clean any heater elements that might be within the sump. Your protein skimmer and your skimmer cup, you want to remember to clean your skimmer very thoroughly, as the skimmer collects nutrient matter out of the water column, and over time, if you don't clean that, will really become foul, and you'll definitely notice an odor from that. So definitely keep that clean on a weekly basis. Now that we're done with our media change within the filtration system and our filter inspection, we want to move on to filling the aquarium. Saltwater aquariums always should utilize purified tap water. We run all of our tap water through a reverse osmosis deionization filter system, also known as an RODI filter. That's going to purify the tap water so pure that all the minerals, metals, any chlorines or anything like that are going to be completely removed. You got to remember, the species that we're keeping are so small, metals that may not affect us or minerals that wouldn't affect us are going to have a huge impact on these fish here. So you always want to start with a very purified water. Once you have the purified water, you would add the salt to it, and a synthetic salt mix is going to be critical, a good quality synthetic salt mix, to the success of your tank. RODI water is always available here at our locations so that you can purchase it for your own water changes at home. In a tank of this size, we actually have an RODI unit that is located in a utility area of the building. That utility area is where we make up our salt water, and then it's actually pumped directly to the fish tank, and there's a tap above the fish tank so it can be topped off automatically as needed. Makes it a little bit more convenient for water changes like we're doing here. Remember, the salinity In a saltwater fish only tank, we typically recommend keeping it at about 1.021. A salinity of that level is a little bit lower than natural seawater, which is about 1.025. The reason that we keep the salinity a little bit lower than natural seawater in a saltwater fish only tank is because the fish can tolerate the salinity swing. However, parasites don't like it as much, so it's actually a preventative measure to help reduce parasites within a saltwater fish only aquarium. Now keep in mind, if this was a reef tank, you cannot reduce the salinity to that extent. You must keep it at natural seawater level, which is about 1.025. Now that our tank is full, we'll go ahead to turn the system on and get everything operating again. Now that everything's operational, make sure that your heater, your protein skimmer, your UV sterilizer, your pump, and any other mechanical equipment you may have is functioning properly. If everything's operating properly, also take care to make sure that the return pipes into your aquarium, if they were moved during the service, are pointed in the right direction. Keep in mind that a properly operating aquarium should slightly agitate the water surface so that you can see a rippling effect. For one, that'll help create oxygen within the water, and for two, it'll actually help make a shimmer when the lights are on over the aquarium if the top of the tank is rippling slightly. We want to make sure that the fish all look good and healthy, and we want to move on to doing a water test again. We want to confirm that the salinity in the aquarium is again at 1.021 or so on a tank like this. We want to also test the nitrite, and pH. With the water test complete, we can move on to adding a couple of supplements. One is going to be the 8.4 to manage your pH. Another would be stability to help add bacteria to the aquarium that may have been affected from the water change. That's critical in a new tank and often can be used in an established tank if you're adding more fish or if you're concerned that the bacteria might be affected by the performance of the water change. Another product that is optional is clarity. When a tank is serviced, you'll notice debris within the system suspended. It'll take a couple hours for that to filter out. If you want to expedite that process, a product called Clarity will help all the small particulate matter cling together and get caught in your mechanical filter system. When you're filling your tank with water and your tank has a sump on it, there's a couple of things that you need to know. So here's a few tips to help you. One is, if your sump is not marked with an operating water level, fill your aquarium with the tank off. When you're filling your aquarium and the tank is off, and your aquarium fills all the way up to the teeth of the overflow, then you can continue filling the tank until the water starts trickling down into your sump filter box. As your sump starts to fill up again with the system off, you can fill your sump all the way up to about 1 inch below the top of the sump, and then your tank is considered full at that point. Then when you turn your system on, the operating water within the aquarium will rise slightly, consuming some of the water in the sump. Therefore, the sump water level will drop slightly, depending on the size of the aquarium and the size of your sump. When the water stops dropping in your sump and your tank is operating for a minute or two, that will determine the maximum operating water level of the aquarium. The maximum operating water level is what you can safely add water to your aquarium to while it is running. So in this case, you'll see now that everything is up and running, our water level is perfect at the predetermined operating water level. With that complete, we'll clean the outside of the aquarium, and you can also clean any equipment with Safe and Easy. Safe and Easy is a product used on the outside of the aquarium for glass or acrylic, helps keep fingerprints off. You definitely do not want to use a household cleaner. A household cleaner that's sprayed near the aquarium could accidentally get within the water column and have an adverse effect on your fish's health. Safe and Easy is a product not intended for the inside of the aquarium, but if you had some overspray, wouldn't cause any negative problems. Now that we're done with our weekly managed services of this aquarium, we want to double check our work. For our technicians in the field, this means using our fishtail form and going through and completing the checklist. The checklist is going to have things like the fish health and making sure they're active after the service. We want to make sure the overflow is cleaned and free of any debris. We want to make sure that the heaters and all the operating equipment are working properly. And we want to make sure that there's no algae within the aquarium. If there's any missed spots at this point that we catch, you best go back and get them, because those spots will grow at 10% a day and quickly overwhelm the aquarium. And the next time you come to service it, it's going to be a lot harder to clean it. It's also a good time at the end of the service to kind of take a fish inventory and determine if any new fish need to be added to the aquarium. If that's the case, keep in mind what's already in the tank so that you can be prepared to bring a different selection of fish to add in the following service. When you're adding fish to an aquarium, it's always best to do it after a service so that they don't experience the stress of a service immediately after being acclimated to the aquarium. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Fish Guy TV. It was great being with you today. I hope that you learned some great tips on how to take care of your aquarium. Remember, it's our job to make you successful and actually make your job easier in managing your aquarium. If you're successful, we're successful, and that's the common goal that we have together. Remember to like us on Facebook, check us out online at somethingfishyinc.com, of course YouTube at YouTube/FishGuyTV, and don't forget our retail stores are here 7 days a week to help you so that you're successful in the aquarium hobby. Also, if you need to call us, it's 877-FISH-TALK.